Chapter 1. I sign my divorce papers at breakfast, steal the last honey pastry from my alpha husband's plate, and ask whether he prefers to split our properties alphabetically or by which rooms hold the fewest portraits of his terrifying ancestors. Bennett Hawthorne does not answer. The Duke of the Northern Territories simply stares at my signature like I stabbed him with the pen. I take a bite of his pastry. Tastes like victory and stolen honey. Mostly honey. You should chew, I say. You look like a man swallowing a war. You filed for divorce. His voice comes out low and rough, like gravel dragged over ice. I did. Before coffee. I'm efficient like that. He does not know what I know. He does not know that I lived this life once already. That 3 months from today, guards drag me into a courtyard while the whole capital watches. That I die with treason pinned to my name and his silence pinned to my heart. He does not know that I woke up this morning 25 again, 3 months early, with my execution still burning behind my eyes. Reincarnation taught me 2 things. First, never trust a smiling royal advisor. Second, when you know your husband is going to abandon you, abandon him first. Bennett picks up the document. His amber eyes move across every line. Then, slowly, deliberately, he tears it in half. I refuse. You can't refuse a unilateral separation. I just did. That's not how the law works. I command half the judges. That is unfortunately exactly how the law works, I admit. Corruption has really strengthened your argument. His scent thickens across the table. Cedar and smoke and winter rain, rolling toward me like weather. In my last life, that scent meant distance. A door I lived behind but never got to open. Today it presses close, agitated, almost afraid. Afraid. Bennett Hawthorne. I file that impossibility away for later. I reach across the table and gather the torn halves, mostly to be dramatic about taping them back together. The moment my fingers touch the paper, the world catches fire with silver. It? Thin, glowing, bright as moonlight on a blade, pouring out of the ripped contract. They stretch across the breakfast table, wrap around Bennett's chest, and coil directly around his heart. One thread pulls tight. Bennett's hand slams against the table. His breath breaks in half. Bennett. I am up before I decide to move. My hand closes around his wrist. The threads loosen. His breathing steadies. Color crawls back into his face. He looks at his own chest like it betrayed him, then at me, and I make my expression as blank and innocent as a man mid-pastry theft can manage. Heartburn, I offer. Very common in men who tear up legal documents before 9. He doesn't laugh. He never laughs. But something in his eyes holds on to me a beat too long, like he is measuring the distance between us and finding it dangerous. I see the threads. He clearly cannot, which means my new body came with something my old one never had, and that something just told me a very inconvenient truth. The divorce papers are strangling my husband's heart. I reincarnated specifically to leave Bennett Hawthorne before he could destroy me again. Saving his life was not on my schedule. Naturally, I keep all of this to myself. In my experience, the fastest way to end up executed is to be interesting. Sit, Bennett says. I'm leaving. The gates are closed. I turn very slowly. Excuse me. As of an hour ago, no one enters or leaves the estate. He rises, and even wounded by paperwork, he fills the room the way storms fill a sky. This morning, a second divorce petition arrived at the Royal Registry, filed in your name, before yours. The pastry turns to stone in my stomach. That's not possible. I wrote mine at dawn, alone. My handwriting is a disaster only I can legally produce. Then explain this. He sets a document in front of me. I look down and feel the floor tilt. It is my handwriting. Not similar. Identical. Every crooked letter, every impatient stroke, the little hook I put on my name when I'm feeling petty, which is always. And beneath my signature, pressed faint into the fiber of the paper like a bruise under skin, sits a seal I recognize from my worst memories. A ring of thorns around a closed eye. Chancellor Sterling Creed. the smiling advisor who stood beside my execution platform in my first life and called it justice. My chest goes cold in a way that has nothing to do with the season. Someone forged it, I say. Obviously. Bennett steps closer. When I sway back, something flickers through him, quick and pained, gone before I can name it. Until I find who, you stay where I can see you. You've ignored me for 3 years, and now you want a front row seat. I never ignored you. He says it too fast, too raw. Then he locks it down, jaw tight, the cold Duke again. Eat. You're pale. I'm always pale. It's called being decorative. He walks out. My eyes drop, against every ounce of my better judgment, to the forged petition still sitting on the table. That is when I see the date. My real petition is dated today. The forgery is dated 3 days ago. 3 days ago, I was still dead. 3 days ago, the first version of me had not yet opened his eyes in this bed, in this life, with an execution seared into his memory. Whoever forged my divorce didn't copy my plan. They knew it before I did. I stand alone in the breakfast room, holding a paper written by a dead man's hand, and understand one thing with terrible clarity. Someone knew I was coming back. Chapter 2. Bennett collapses at midnight, and it is technically my fault. But to explain the collapsing, I have to explain the leaving, and to explain the leaving, I have to go back 3 years, to the first time I ever smelled cedar and smoke and made the worst decision of my first life. The imperial mating ceremony. 23 years old, newly presented, delivered to court by my family like a fruit basket with opinions. They wanted access to a duke's army. I wanted the exits. I counted 4 doors, 6 windows, and 1 chandelier I could theoretically ride down if the evening got desperate. Then his scent found me. Cedar, smoke, rain on cold stone. My instincts leaned toward it like a plant toward sun, which infuriated me, because the source was a tall alpha in a black ceremonial uniform with amber eyes and the expression of a man attending his own funeral. Bennett Hawthorne caught me staring. "You're staring," he said. "I'm evaluating the quality of the cage. You think marriage to me is imprisonment. I think any door locked from the outside deserves an honest name. That should have ended me." Omegas at court were supposed to smile, smell pleasant, and aspire to furniture. Instead, the Duke of the Northern Territories crossed the floor, ignored 11 candidates trained since birth to please him, and chose me before the introductions finished. For about 6 months, I thought we might become something. He remembered things, that I hated cold rooms, that I read late and lied about it. Once he laughed, quietly, at something cruel I said about a visiting baron, and the sound rearranged my whole chest. Then someone tried to kill him, and the man I was starting to love walked into winter and never came back. He gave me everything after that. Jewels I didn't ask for. Guards I didn't want. Silence I couldn't survive. We shared an estate and rarely a meal. In my first life, I decided his distance meant disgust. I carried that belief all the way to the execution platform. I look at him now, in the present, standing in the doorway of my wing with 2 servants carrying his belongings, and I remind myself that mysterious is not the same as innocent. "No," I say. "Someone forged your signature inside a sealed registry," Bennett says. "Until I know how, I sleep where I can reach you. You've had 3 years of marriage to reach me. Your sense of urgency is inspiring." Marlowe, that's my name. Wielding it doesn't win the argument. He moves in anyway. Of course he does. Alphas treat objection like whether something to be endured on the way to what they want. I retaliate by narrating his habits aloud like a naturalist observing a large, emotionally stunted predator. He checks the window latches twice. He positions his boots facing the door. He notices the vase I moved and moves it back. "Fascinating," I murmur. The specimen requires symmetry to feel powerful. The specimen can hear you. The specimen was meant to. By midnight, the estate goes quiet, and I go to work. Because here is what I know that Bennett doesn't. Staying close to him is what killed me last time. Whatever is happening with forged petitions and thorn seals, the safest version of me is the version that is gone. The servant's passage behind the linen room is exactly where I remember it. I make it 30 steps into the dark before the silver thread ignites. It flares across my vision, stretched thin through walls and distance, and I feel it more than see it. Pulling, tightening, somewhere behind me, wrapped around a heart that is not mine. I run. I find him in the corridor outside my empty room, on one knee, one hand braced against the wall, breathing like a man drowning in air. His guards are shouting for a physician. His eyes find mine down the length of the hallway, and even now, even choking, the first thing he does is look relieved. That look does something unforgivable to me. Move. I snap at the guards and drop to my knees in front of my husband. The thread around his heart is knotted tight, silver strangling silver. I don't think. I grab his hand, the one wearing his wedding ring, and press my own ring against it, gold to gold. Light spills between our hands. The knot loosens. The thread settles into a soft, steady glow, rising and falling with his breath. Bennett drags in air, and his forehead drops, just for a second, against mine. Cedar and smoke fold around me like a coat I never admitted I missed. You left, he rasps. I went for a walk, through the linen passage. At midnight. I enjoy linen. It relaxes me. His hand tightens around mine, careful like I might fold. Every time you go far from me, something breaks in my chest. Started this morning, when you signed. So he feels it. He just cannot see it. And I cannot explain it without explaining silver threads, reincarnation, and the small detail of my previous death, so I do what I do best. I deflect. Maybe your body is allergic to divorce. Maybe. He doesn't smile, but the ghost of one moves through his voice. Stay in the room, Marlowe. Please. The please is new. The please is unfair. Between our joined hands, our wedding rings are still glowing, and in that light I see something that was never there before. Letters, fine as hair, engraved on the inner band of both rings, rising to the surface as if the metal is sweating out a secret. I tilt his hand toward the lamplight and read the words no jeweler ever mentioned. If the Omega abandons the Union, the Alpha's life and command shall return to the Crown's appointed guardian. Bennett reads it too. His face goes very still, very cold. Bennett, who is the Crown's appointed guardian? He looks at me, amber eyes dark. Sterling Creed, Chapter 3. The Imperial Marriage Archive smells like dust, ink, and the slow death of romance, which makes it my favorite room in the Capitol. Hollis Dane, keeper of the registry, is a thin beta with nervous hands and the haunted eyes of a man who has alphabetized too much human suffering. He takes one look at our marriage contract, another at the inscription on our rings, and quietly locks the archive door. That, he says, is not standard. Amazing, I say. I was worried we were ordinary. Hollis spreads our contract across the reading table like a surgeon opening a patient. The document was altered after both signatures. See the ink layering here and here. New clauses written into old paper. Legally, amendments without consent are void. He swallows. But this carries the Hawthorne founding seal. The covenant lives in the seal, not the paper. Burn the page, and you may simply activate what's hidden in it. So the contract is holding my husband's heart hostage, and destroying it pulls the trigger. Elegantly put. Horrifying, but elegant. Bennett stands at my shoulder, silent, reading the clauses like enemy troop movements. I flex my fingers over the parchment. The silver is already rising to meet me, threads shimmering under the surface of the page like veins under skin. I press my palm flat against our marriage contract. The archive vanishes. I am standing in a dark bedroom that smells of medicine and endings. A dying man lies propped against pillows, and I know his face from the portraits Bennett keeps covered. His father. Beside the bed stands a younger Sterling Creed, thorn ring gleaming, voice warm as bathwater. The boy cannot hold the North alone, Sterling murmurs. Bind the army to his marriage. If the Union fails, let command pass to a steadier hand. Mine. The dying Duke's lips move. I lean closer, straining to hear. The memory tears. Pain splits through my skull. The archive slams back around me, tilting badly, and my scent breaks loose from my control, wild honey flooding the room in a wave of raw distress. My knees give. I do not hit the floor. Bennett catches me before gravity finishes the sentence. One arm under my knees, the other around my back, lifting me like I am made of paper and grudges. Put me down. You fainted. I descended dramatically. There's a difference, and being carried is humiliating. Would you prefer being dropped? That depends entirely on the flooring. He carries me into Hollis's small side office and sets me on a couch with a gentleness that undermines all my best resentments. He crouches in front of me, and his scent wraps close, cedar and smoke steadying my pulse without permission. Worse, I watch my own scent reach back, wild honey threading into his storm, and his shoulders loosening, the tension bleeding out of him breath by breath. Our bodies, it turns out, never got the memo about the divorce. You saw something, he says quietly, in the contract. Your father's deathbed. Sterling suggesting the clause. I hesitate, then give him the worst part. Your father was speaking, agreeing, refusing, I don't know. The memory broke before I heard. Something crosses Bennett's face, old grief with fresh edges. Before either of us can bleed further, Hollis knocks, pale as his own paperwork. Your Grace, you have a visitor. From the Crown Council. The man waiting in the archive hall is beautiful the way winter is beautiful. Polished, deliberate, cold enough to burn. An omega in council colors, carrying a sealed proposal, and my dead heart recognizes him instantly. Camden Rowe. In my first life, I heard his name from inside a prison cell. The politically valuable omega. The suitable replacement. The one Bennett married after me. The past has walked into the room wearing excellent boots. Duke Hawthorne. Camden bows with mathematical precision. The council extends a proposal regarding the stability of the northern succession. His eyes slide to me, flat and dismissive, like I am a stain on good furniture. Given the current instability of your marriage. Careful, I say pleasantly. Instability is contagious. Look what happened to my divorce. Camden's jaw tightens. Beside me, low and involuntary, Bennett's scent sharpens. Not at me. At Camden, the moment he steps closer to me, a warning of smoke curling through the air, and Camden stops moving like he walked into glass. Bennett takes the sealed proposal, holds it up so the whole room can watch, and hands it back unopened. Tell the council my succession is stable, he says. My marriage is not their concern. I refuse to be moved by this. I am absolutely moved by this. But when Bennett turns to speak with Hollis, Camden passes me close, and his voice drops to almost nothing. Leave this place before Bennett kills you. Then he is gone, all polish and frost, and I am left holding a sentence with no safe place to put it. The last thing the archive gives me that day is worse. While Bennett arranges guards, I touch the altered contract one final time, chasing the layered ink. The silver shows me the hidden clause being written, a pen moving in candlelight, Sterling's ring on the desk, and a second figure in the memory, standing beside the desk, watching the clause take shape, slender, familiar, wearing my face. I have no memory of that room. I would swear my life on it, except I have already lost my life once and my confidence in my own mind is going with it. That night, I find my bedroom window open and a letter on my pillow, the paper stiff and brown with old blood. My name is on the front in Camden's handwriting. I unfold it with cold fingers, and the first line guts me. If you are reading this, they moved the execution to sunrise and I have failed you. The letter is dated 1 hour before my death. In my first life. Chapter 4. I read a dead man's warning by candlelight while my own hands refused to stay steady. The blood-stained letter says everything my first life never let me hear. That the treason evidence was forged in Sterling Creed's office. That the witnesses were bought or leashed. That someone tried to reach me before sunrise and was stopped at the prison gates. The signature at the bottom belongs to the same polished frost and silk omega who told me yesterday to run. So when Camden Rowe slips into my sitting room after midnight, I am waiting with tea, 2 cups, and a knife I have no real plan for. You kept it, he says, eyes on the letter. You bled on it. Seemed rude to throw it away. Camden sits. Up close, the polish shows cracks. In your first life, I never touched Bennett. The engagement was Sterling's script. My father died owing the chancellor, and debt covenants passed to sons. I entered this court as his property. His voice stays even, but his fingers whiten around the teacup. I accepted the proposal so I could get inside the palace and find the ledger of altered contracts. Instead, Sterling caught my letter to you. He rewrote my testimony. I stood in that courtroom and read words he wrote, and you went to the platform believing them. And I'm supposed to simply trust you now.
No.
You're supposed to verify me. You're the one with the eyes. Interesting. He knows about the threads. I look at him properly the way the silver taught me. And there it is. A black covenant, knotted around his throat like a collar, threads running out through the walls toward the Capitol. As he speaks Sterling's name, the knots pull tight and his voice cuts out, breath strangled to a whisper. Coercion made visible. The truth wearing a leash. Fine, I say quietly. I believe you. Stop choking. It's upsetting the tea. The council reception 2 nights later is a battlefield with chandeliers. Sterling Creed holds court in the center of it, silver-haired, grandfatherly, beloved. He speaks of Omega welfare and national stability, and the room nods along, and I watch black threads run from his ring into half the marriages present. He finds me by the windows. Of course he does. Consort Hayes. His smile is warm bread over a blade. I was distressed to hear of your divorce petition. Such an unstable impulse. The court worries for your mind. How kind. The court can relax. My mind and I are very close. We tell each other everything. Grief does strange things to young Omegas. So does paperwork, I say. You'd be amazed what turns up in old contracts. Layers and layers. Like an onion with a legal degree. The warmth stays on his mouth. It vacates his eyes entirely, and I understand with a cold thrill that he knows I touched the contract, which means someone inside the archive is his. Sterling turns and lifts one hand, and the trap closes on schedule. A magistrate in council colors steps forward, flanked by guards, unrolling an order in a voice built to carry. Marlowe Hayes, by order of the review court, you are detained on suspicion of forging royal documents. Gasps ripple outward, expensive silk swirling as the room turns to enjoy my destruction. I look at the arrest order, and my stomach drops through the marble. The authorizing signature at the bottom is mine. My handwriting, again, confident, petty hook on the final letter. A signature I never wrote, on an order for my own arrest, and the elegance of it almost deserves applause. The guards reach for me. They do not arrive. Bennett crosses the reception floor like a change in climate, and suddenly there is a wall of black uniform and cold fury between me and the entire council. His scent detonates through the hall, cedar and smoke gone sharp as a drawn blade, and highborn alphas step backward on instinct. Read the order again, Bennett says softly. Find my seal on it. Any lawful detention of my husband requires it. He lets the silence become unbearable. It isn't there, so understand me clearly. Anyone who touches Marlowe Hayes without lawful authority will be treated as an enemy of the Northern Army. I will not say it twice. Nobody moves. Somewhere behind me, I hear Camden exhale. Sterling smiles, bows, and calls it a regrettable clerical error. The reception limps onward. My reputation, remarkably, is the thing that survives. I am not grateful. I am furious, and I wait until we're alone in the corridor to detonate. 3 years, I say. 3 years of eating alone in a marriage built for 2, and it turns out you could do that the whole time. Marlowe, you defended me like a husband tonight. Where was that man every morning I woke up married to a stranger? Bennett's control cracks down the middle. Watching Sterling watch you, the words come out raw. He measures what I love by how often I look at it. My mother, my sister, my oldest friend. Everyone I ever openly cared for is a name on a gravestone. Marlowe. So I starved myself of you in public and told myself your loneliness was the price of your heartbeat. The corridor goes very quiet. You protected my body, I say finally, and let my heart believe it was garbage. You don't get to call that love just because it hurt you too. He has no defense. To his credit, he doesn't build one. He just stands there, taking it, amber eyes full of things 3 years too late. I open my mouth to finish him off. The window behind us bursts. Bennett moves faster than sound, spinning, folding his whole body around mine as we hit the floor. Glass rains across his back. Shouting erupts. Through the noise, pinned under my husband's pounding heart, I see the crossbow bolt buried in the wall where I stood. Its tip glistens green-black, and the silver threads recoil from it, hissing. Poison. Brewed for one purpose. Killing an alpha whose mating covenant has begun to dissolve. Chapter 5. The poison reaches Bennett's heart before the physicians reach the hallway, and I do the stupidest thing of both my lives. I grab the silver thread with my bare hands. The venom is climbing it like fire up a fuse, green-black light racing along the covenant that ties his heartbeat to our marriage. No physician can touch what only I can see. So I wrap my fingers around the burning thread and pull the poison into myself. The pain is extraordinary. I say something extremely dignified, possibly a scream, and the world goes out like a lamp. I wake in an unfamiliar bed that smells entirely of cedar and smoke, which answers the question of whose it is. Gray dawn light, my right hand bandaged to the wrist, and in a chair pulled close, still in last night's glass-torn uniform, Bennett Hawthorne. Watching me like the sunrise is a rumor, and I'm the only reliable light source. You stayed, I rasp. You almost died. So nearly dying is the trick. Good to know. I'll schedule it weekly. Tuesdays. We'll make it romantic. Marlowe. My name comes out wrecked. He leans forward, elbows on knees, and I realize his hands are shaking. Bennett Hawthorne's hands. Shaking. You pulled poison out of my body and into yours. I watched you burn and I couldn't touch what was killing you. Welcome to marriage with me. It's largely invisible suffering. He doesn't laugh. He looks at my bandaged hand like it's a battlefield he lost. The door opens and Camden enters with fresh dressings, because apparently he has field medic training and a death wish. He unwraps my hand, and the temperature in the room drops several political degrees. I glance up. Bennett has not moved, but 3 armed guards have materialized between Camden and the bed, and my husband's scent has gone from worried cedar to territorial bonfire. Strategic positioning, Bennett says flatly. There are 3 of them, dear, between the bed and the man holding gauze. He was armed. With ointment. Camden wisely finishes fast and flees. And in the quiet afterward, Bennett finally opens the door he's kept locked for 3 years. He tells me about his mother, who laughed loudly and loved obviously, poisoned at a harvest feast. His sister, 12 years old, taken on the road to the temple where he was seen praying with her every week. His first military advisor, more father than officer, drowned the summer after Bennett publicly wept at his sickbed. Every loss traced back to one lesson carved into a young alpha's bones. Whatever you love where they can see it, they will take. So I made you invisible, he says. I thought if Sterling believed you meant nothing, you'd be the one thing he never aimed at. I was wrong. He aimed at you from the beginning. I sit with that. The wound explains the walls. It doesn't unbuild them. I understand why, I say at last. Understanding isn't absolution, Bennett. Your reasons were about protecting me. My loneliness was still real. Both things get to exist. I know. No excuses. Growth. Disgusting. At this rate, I'll be in love by autumn, and I refuse. New terms, I say, offering my unbandaged hand like a treaty. No more secrets that concern the investigation or each other's safety. Full stop. Agreed. We shake on it, and the magic answers. A thread rises from our joined hands, thin and bright and clean. No knots, no coercion. Silver as a promise freely made. We both watch it settle between us, and I understand the rule it's teaching. Forced covenants strangle. chosen ones shine. Then I get to work because someone tried to make me a widower, and I hold grudges professionally. The assassin's crossbow sits in the guardhouse. One touch and the silver unspools, a payment covenant stretching from the weapon's grip through the city, underground, into the bones of the capital. Bennett refuses to let me follow it alone. I refuse to stay behind. Marriage is compromise, so we both go. The thread leads us beneath the Imperial Archive, into tunnels lined with shelves no clerk ever admitted existed. Hollis meets us with a lantern and the expression of a man whose worst suspicions have been promoted to facts. Contracts, hundreds, thousands, marriage covenants altered in layered ink, military oaths with ownership clauses buried in them, Omegas bonded to strangers to settle debts they never signed, judges whose loyalty was purchased through their own wedding vows, decades of it, and every altered document wearing the same thorn and eye seal like a signature confession. He hasn't corrupted people, I whisper. He's corrupted promises. The whole empire runs on paperwork, and the paperwork belongs to him. An old woman is waiting in the tunnels. A rescued contract Omega, gray and steady, hiding among the shelves. She looks at my face and goes white. You, she breathes. You're the one from the platform. The Chancellor's project. Her hands twist together. I filed his correspondence for 11 years. I heard him plan your trial, boy. Your execution wasn't punishment. It was procedure. He needed you to die. The tunnel goes airless. Bennett's hand finds my shoulder and stays. Needed, I repeat. Why? That, he never wrote down. Hollis calls out then, voice strange, from a shelf marked with the Hawthorne crest. He holds a contract older than the rest, paper soft with age. The signature at the bottom stops my heart.
Elena Hawthorne.
Bennett's mother. I touch it, and the silver shows me the clause hidden in her marriage papers, written in Sterling's patient hand years before Bennett ever grew tall. Cold, clean, actuarial. Upon the death of Elena Hawthorne, the succession covenant of her son shall be prepared, and bound to a bride of the Chancellor's selection. Her murder wasn't revenge. It was scheduling, and the bride of the Chancellor's selection, chosen years before a sharp-tongued Omega ever counted exits at a mating ceremony, was always going to be me. Chapter 6. The abandoned royal chapel has my name carved into its altar, and I have never set foot in this building in either of my lives. We follow Elena Hawthorne's contract thread through the tunnels until it surfaces here, in a chapel sealed off before Bennett was born. Dust sheets over broken pews, moonlight through a cracked dome, and on the altar, cut deep into the stone by a patient hand, one word. Hayes. Bennett's lantern shakes once. Just once. Marlowe. Why is your family name in my family's chapel? I was about to ask the architecture the same thing. The silver answers before the stone does. Threads rise from the altar in ropes, older and thicker than anything I've touched, and when my palm meets the carving, the past opens like a wound. Sterling Creed, younger, kneeling in this chapel with genealogy scrolls spread around him, tracing bloodlines by candlelight, circling one family again and again.
Mine.
His voice, soft with wonder, speaking to the empty room. The haze line carried the weavers. The gift sleeps in the blood. It wakes through death and return. It only ever wakes through death and return. The memory shifts. Sterling older now, standing over a map of the capital, placing a marker on my family's district the year I was born. Planning my marriage before I could walk. Planning my execution before I could love. My death was never punishment. It was ignition. I surface from the vision on my knees, and this time I don't joke about descending dramatically. Bennett is holding me up, and his face has gone gray. He killed you to light a fuse, Bennett says. The trial, the platform, all of it. He needed you to die believing everything was taken from you, so the gift would claw its way back. His voice fractures, and I handed him the stage. I filed for that divorce. You what? In your first life. Listen to me. He grips my shoulders, desperate to be understood before I can hate him. Sterling was closing in. I built an escape for you. A A quiet separation, land in the south, a new name, distance from the succession war. I signed papers that were supposed to free you. His breath drags. Sterling intercepted them. He rewrote my escape into an abandonment, forged the final petition, and rerouted you from a safe road to a treason trial. You died thinking I threw you away. I spent 3 months thinking you fled and hated me. Then they told me you were dead, and I stopped being a person. The chapel is very quiet. Somewhere above us, wind moves through the broken dome like breath. Every anchor of my hatred pulls loose at once, and the drowning feeling that follows is not relief. Hatred was simple. Hatred kept me warm on the execution platform and pulled me out of bed in this second life. Without it, there is only the truth, and the truth is unbearable. I loved him then. I am losing the war against loving him now. I came back to leave you, I say. My voice comes out smaller than I have ever allowed it. I built my whole return around hating you, Bennett. It was clean. It had a schedule. And then you kept standing between me and every blade, and remembering my tea, and asking permission. And now I want things I cannot survive losing twice. Marlowe, I watched the sun rise on the morning I died, and the only thing I regretted was you. Do not make me regret you again. Never. He says it like an oath, and the silver in the room actually stirs, because my ridiculous magic responds to spoken truth, and apparently so do I. He reaches for my face. Stops, an inch away, trembling with the effort of stopping. May I? 3 years of silence, 2 lifetimes of grief, and this impossible man asks. Yes. His palm curves against my cheek like I'm something that might break, which is insulting, because I have threatened magistrates with furniture. So I fist my hand in the front of his coat and pull, and the kiss stops being careful. Cedar and smoke flood into wild honey. His arm locks around my waist. My back finds a pillar. The kiss turns hungry. 3 years of starvation trying to fit through one doorway, and the silver threads around us glow like a sky full of low stars. We break apart, breathing hard. His forehead rests against mine. We should stop, he murmurs. We should absolutely stop.
Danger.
Conspiracy. Terrible lighting. Neither of us moves for a long moment. That is its own confession. It's Bennett who finally steps back. And he does one more thing that unmakes me. He pulls a sealed letter from inside his coat, worn soft at the corners, and puts it in my hands. I wrote this the night before your execution. A confession of everything. The escape plan, Sterling, all of it. I was refused entry to the prison. His jaw works. I've carried it since. It was always yours. I don't open it. Not yet. Some things need to be read alone, where crying can be done with dignity. Then Hollis calls out from behind the altar, voice thin with fear. There's a compartment in the stone. Inside it lies a contract, unfinished. 1 signature line filled and 1 still empty. The completed signature is mine. My handwriting, my petty little hook, aged brown by decades, dated before I was born. The same face I saw in the archive memory. The other me. Beneath the impossible signature, someone has written a single instruction in ink that still looks wet. When Sterling is arrested, do not believe you have one. Bennett reads it over my shoulder, and the warmth of the kiss drains out of the night, because it means the enemy we're hunting has already planned his own capture. Chapter 7. An assassin's blade is at my throat when I decide to renegotiate his employment. They come at dawn, 4 of them, through the servant's wing while Bennett and I are finalizing evidence for the council hearing. Bennett becomes weather. 2 attackers are on the floor before I finish standing. But the 3rd circles wide, and suddenly there is steel under my jaw and a voice demanding the archive documents. The blade doesn't frighten me. I died once already. What I notice instead is the black thread knotted around the assassin's wrist, running from his contract of hire. You're bonded to a kill oath, I say calmly. Sloppy claws work. Your employer owns your silence but not your intent. Whoever drafted it should be disbarred. Quiet. Here's my counteroffer. I press 2 fingers to the black thread and pull it into the light where he can feel it burn. I can unknot this. You walk free of him, testify to the council, and live. Or you can kill me and spend your life as a leash. Choose fast. My husband is almost done with your friends. He chooses testimony. Smart man. Bennett turns around to find his Omega converting an assassin into a witness with paperwork. And the look on his face is the closest he has ever come to religious awe. You terrify me, he says. Thank you, dear. That night, with guards tripled and evidence sealed, he asks the question that has been sitting between us since breakfast on the first day. When this ends, do you still want the divorce? I consider lying. I consider joking. I do neither. I want the right to decide after, I say. Not as a hostage, not as a widow, not as a man with silver wrapped around his choices. When Sterling falls, ask me again with the doors open. Bennett nods slowly, and I watch him accept an answer that gives him nothing but my freedom. Then I'll wait. That acceptance undoes me more thoroughly than any vow could. The distance between us closes without either of us commanding it. His hands frame my face. Mine find the scars beneath his collar. He asks again the way he always asks now, and I answer against his mouth. What follows stays unhurried and deliberate, cedar and smoke sinking into wild honey until the whole room smells like us. He checks more than once that I am certain. I remain loud, present, and entirely his equal, and when his alpha nature rises, it meets my surrender only because refusal would have been just as safe. Behind my closed eyes, the silver threads burn clean and bright. We do not pretend one night heals 3 years. But when I wake wrapped in his heartbeat, neither of us is pretending indifference ever again. The council hearing convenes at noon, and I arrive dressed like vengeance with good tailoring. We are ruthless. The forged petition falls first, dated 3 days before its own ink existed, exposed by the registry's own stamps. Hollis presents 15 years of copied contracts, layered ink and hidden clauses, thorn seals blooming across marriage after marriage like mold. My converted assassin names his paymaster. Then Camden Row stands, throat working against a covenant only I can see strangling him, and forces the truth out word by strangled word. The debt bond, the scripted testimony from my first trial. Sterling's hand on all of it. The chamber erupts. Sterling Creed sits through his own destruction with his hands folded, serene as a portrait. The verdict lands by sundown. Arrest. Seizure of his offices. Bennett's command affirmed. My innocence proclaimed in the same hall that once ordered my death. Counselors who watched me dragged to a platform in another life now bow as I pass, and I let them see exactly how little their bowing repairs. Outside, in the gold light of the plaza, Bennett laces his fingers through mine in front of the entire Capitol.
No secrecy.
No strategy. Just a duke holding his husband where every enemy can see. It's over, he says. It's over, I agree. And I intend to celebrate with a quantity of pastries that will concern the physicians. Guards bring Sterling out in chains. He crosses the plaza with the bearing of a man attending a ceremony held in his honor, and as he draws level with us, he stops, looks at our joined hands, looks at me, and Sterling Creed begins to laugh. It is a warm, delighted, grandfatherly sound, and it empties my veins of everything but ice. Oh, child, he says gently, you used the gift in the council chamber. You've been using it for weeks, unknotting, revealing, pulling poison, weaving your little honest threads. His eyes shine. Every use ripened the covenant. And an hour ago, when the council affirmed your innocence and your marriage in a single verdict, the final clause of the Hawthorne founding contract came awake. Ask your archivist. Page 40. The inheritance provision. Hollis is already tearing through the seized documents, and I watch his face fall off a cliff. It's here, he whispers, upon validation of the union and awakening of a weaver spouse. If Duke Bennett Hawthorne dies, all title, wealth, and military command pass immediately and irrevocably to his surviving husband. Marlowe Hayes. The plaza tilts, because I understand instantly the way you understand a trap only after standing in its center. Every ambitious family in the empire just inherited a reason to murder my husband, And when they succeed, the packless nobody Omega who conveniently gains an army will hang for it. In a story the whole court has already been taught to believe once before. Sterling leans close as the guards pull him on, and his whisper is a gift wrapped in ruin. I told you not to believe you'd won. Chapter 8. Bennett accuses me of treason in front of 400 people, and my heart forgets which life it is dying in. 6 days. That's how long the inheritance clause takes to poison the capital. 6 days of forged letters surfacing in my handwriting, of counselors who bowed to me crossing corridors to avoid me, of 3 separate assassins reaching the estate walls with Bennett's name on their contracts. 6 days of Sterling sitting in a comfortable cell while his design runs itself. On the 7th day, my husband stands at the top of the grand staircase and destroys me on schedule. The evidence is conclusive. His voice carries the way it did in the plaza, except now it is a blade turned inward. The contract was altered by a weaver's hand. Only one weaver lives under this roof. Marlowe Hayes engineered his own inheritance, and I will not share a name with a traitor. Remove him from the estate. The words land in the exact bruise where the first life ended. Different staircase. Same sentence. I know in my bones this is theater, we are being hunted and the court needs a performance, and still my body reacts like the platform is being built outside. My hands go cold. The room smears at the edges. Trust is not the absence of fear. I learned that on the staircase. Trust is standing inside the fear and refusing to let the old wound narrate the new moment. The guards take my arms. Gently, Bennett descends, every step glacial contempt, and stops before me to strip the ducal ring from my finger for the crowd. And there, hidden inside the motion, faster than any watching eye, he presses something else into my palm and folds my fingers closed. The original Hawthorne marriage seal. The heart of the founding covenant. The one object Sterling's entire design cannot function without. His lips barely move. Make them believe they separated us. Then louder, colder, for the audience. Get him out of my sight. I sob once in the entrance hall and it is only half performance. Behind me, I hear a counselor murmur that the Duke never loved the little schemer at all, and I mark his name for later, because grief is temporary but pettiness is forever. They put me out of the gates with one trunk. By nightfall I'm in the tunnels beneath the archive with Camden and Hollis, following the seal's ancient thread deeper than any of us have gone. Above us, according to plan, Bennett remains in the capital wearing his own life as bait, drawing every blade toward himself and away from me. Before I left, I glimpsed the chain at his throat, and hanging from it, hidden beneath his collar, my ring. We walk for hours. The shelves end. The masonry grows older, stranger, until Hollis stops recognizing the stonework of his own empire. The seal in my hand burns brighter with every step, and the silver thread thickens from string to rope to cable. Then the tunnel opens, and I forget how to breathe. The chamber is a cathedral of light. Its ceiling vanishes into darkness, and from that darkness hangs a single document, vast as a banner, suspended in the air, older than the empire that grew around it. The foundation contract, the first covenant, from which every marriage, oath, adoption, and bond of loyalty in the realm descends. And it is diseased. Black threads pour off it in waterfalls. Thousands, tens of thousands. They vein out through the walls toward every district, every province, every noble house. Hollis makes a sound like a man watching his life's ledger catch fire. Every altered contract I ever copied, he whispers. They all root here. He never needed to corrupt people one by one. He grafted his changes onto the source, and the whole system grew crooked around them. Camden's voice comes out hollow. The forced bondings, the debt marriages, the Omegas signed away like furniture. It's not 1,000 crimes. He stares upward. It's one crime with 1,000 branches. I stand beneath the sick heart of my civilization and finally see Sterling Creed at true scale. Not a corrupt minister, an architect. He didn't break the law. He became its root system, and everyone who ever suffered under a crooked contract has been living inside his handwriting. The seal pulls me toward the contract like a compass finding north. This is why I exist. Bloodline, marriage, execution, reincarnation. Every horror of both my lives was scaffolding built to bring a weaver to this room, which is the exact moment I understand our mistake. Sterling never planned to stop me from reaching this chamber. Torchlight blooms in the far archway, boots on old stone, unhurried, and then his voice, warm as ever, rolling through the cathedral of threads. Punctual. I did choose your bloodline well. Sterling Creed walks out of the darkness in his council robes. No chains, no guards restraining him, flanked instead by soldiers wearing black knots at every throat. Hollis chokes out that it's impossible. The cell had triple locks, and Sterling smiles the patient smile of a man who has never once been locked inside anything. Locks are contracts, archivist. Metal promising to stay shut. And every promise in this empire answers to me. Then he lifts one hand, and my world ends for the second time. From the shadows behind him, soldiers drag a man in chains into the light. Black hair matted, uniform torn, amber eyes finding mine across the chamber, and in them not fear for himself, only apology. Bennett, the bait plan captured, the capital blind. The blade at my husband's throat presses close enough to draw one thin line of red. Now then, Sterling says pleasantly, gesturing up at the vast, diseased covenant. Let's discuss what you're going to sign. Chapter 9. The poison is already inside Bennett when Sterling explains the price of his heartbeat. I see it the moment I stop looking at the blade and start looking at the threads. The silver covenant around my husband's heart, the one born the morning I signed my divorce, has gone green-black along its length, venom crawling inward, patient as a tide. The same poison from the reception window. It was never meant to kill him that night. It was meant for tonight. Clock, not a weapon. You've noticed. Sterling clasps his hands like a tutor pleased with a student. Then let me be efficient. Yes, I engineered everything. Your bloodline was the last in the empire carrying the Weaver gift, and the gift wakes only through death and return, so I built you a death worth returning from. The trial, the platform, the despair, all calibrated. He ticks items off like groceries. The forged petition dated before your return, drafted by my hand from the signature your soul left on a much older document. The clause in your rings, the arrest order, Camden's leash, even your archivist's little rebellion. I permitted 15 years of his copying because I needed a paper trail to lure you underground. Every road you chose was one I paved. The chapel, I say. The unfinished contract. The signature that looks like mine. Something flickers behind his eyes. The first unscripted thing I have ever seen in him. A relic of my predecessor's era. Irrelevant to tonight. He's lying. I file it next to the other impossibilities and stay focused, because Bennett's thread is darkening by the minute. Here is the arrangement. Sterling gestures to the vast contract overhead. Only a weaver can amend the foundation. You will transfer its authority to me. Every bond of loyalty, marriage, and command in the empire, rooted in my name. In exchange, I unmake the poison clause, and your Duke lives. His voice gentles into something almost paternal. Refuse, and you may stand there holding your principles while his heart stops. I know you're kind, Marlowe. You'll trade 10,000 strangers for one beloved face. Selfishness dressed as love. It is the most reliable force in the world. And the horror is he's nearly right. I look at Bennett, chained and bleeding, and every strategy in me collapses into one animal scream of keep him alive. 10,000 strangers are an idea. Bennett is the smell of cedar in the morning and a letter carried for years and a man who asked permission to touch my face. I feel my feet move toward the contract. I feel my hands rising to sign the world away. Marlowe, Bennett's voice, wrecked and steady. Look at me. I look. You told me protection without freedom is just a prettier cage. Blood stains his collar, and still his eyes hold mine without a single command in them. If you buy my life with an empire of slaves, I will die anyway, just slower watching you become his instrument. Don't you dare. His voice breaks and reforms. My life is not currency. I refuse to be the reason you kneel. There it is. The man who once locked gates to keep me safe, spending his final leverage to keep me free. His arc closing like a wound finally allowed to heal. He loves me, and he will not use my love as a leash even to save his own heart. Sterling sighs, disappointed in the poetry of it, and signals his soldiers. Chaos detonates. Camden, leash and all, hurls himself at the guard line and starts tearing gags from the captive witnesses Sterling has kept caged along the walls. Contract victims dragged here as insurance. A blade opens his shoulder. He keeps going. And Hollis, trembling, unarmed, 15 years a coward by his own account, plants himself between me and the soldiers, holding up a single page like a shield. Foundation contract, closing provision. His voice cracks and then steadies into something like thunder. I've copied this document 9 times, Chancellor. You built your empire on its roots and never read its last line. No covenant herein shall endure when every party bound by it withdraws consent as one.
Impossible, Sterling snap.
There are millions bound. They cannot speak as one.
No, he whisper.
But I can carry them, because I finally understand what I am. Not a pen, a bridge. My soul has crossed death and returned. It knows the road between silence and speech, between the dead and the living, between a million strangled intentions and one spoken word. I can open myself and let every suppressed refusal in the empire pour through me into the contract. The silver shows me the cost before I ask. Magic priced by weight. A change this size demands the heaviest thing I carry. My most precious memory of Bennett. Not his name, not his face. The one moment my love for him lives inside. The chapel. Moonlight through a broken dome. May I? The kiss that tasted like 2 lifetimes arriving home. The contract will take the root, and I don't know what remains of a love when its first heartbeat is cut away. Bennett sees my face and understands. He shakes his head, chains rattling, shouting my name, and his thread goes darker, darker, minutes from black. 10,000 strangers. One beloved face. Sterling built this choice believing I would fail it. The lesson of both my lives rises up quiet and final. Morality is easy when it costs nothing. Who you are is decided at full price. Bennett. I make myself smile at him. I'm going to forget the chapel. Make it worth remembering again. I press both hands to the foundation contract. I choose the memory. The silver ignites like a second sun. Chapter 10. A million voices pour through my body, and every one of them is saying no. I am the bridge, and the refusals cross me like an army coming home. The Omega signed away at 19. The soldier oath-bound to a tyrant. The daughters traded, the sons leashed, the marriages weaponized. 15 decades of strangled consent floods the foundation contract through my hands, and the black threads cannot hold against it, because coercion is only ever silence enforced, and the silence is over. The corruption shatters. It sounds like the world exhaling. Black knots burst across the chamber, across the city, across the empire, waterfalls of darkness dissolving into clean silver rain. Camden's collar unravels from his throat mid-battle and he sobs once. Free for the first time since his father's death. Sterling soldiers freeze as their kill oaths dissolve, then lower their blades, blinking like men waking, and Sterling Creed screams. Every loyalty covenant he grafted onto other lives turns in his hands. The magic he rooted in the foundation recognizes its true author and returns his work to him, binding him in his own black knots. And the last thing I see before my knees give is the architect of my execution discovering exactly how his paperwork feels from the inside. The freed witnesses take him alive. He will face trial under laws he no longer owns. Bennett's poison clause dies with the rest. His thread burns clean. His heart, no longer hostage to any document, beats on because it simply wants to. Then the contract takes its payment, and somewhere inside me, a chapel goes dark. I wake 3 days later in a sunlit room, and a beautiful stranger is asleep in the chair beside my bed. I know him. That's the strange part. Bennett Hawthorne, my husband, the Duke. I remember the divorce papers and the pastry and the poison, the staircase, the chamber. I remember that I love him, the way you remember a country you've read about. But when his amber eyes open and find mine, my chest stays quiet. The ache is gone. The room where my love was born has no door anymore. He sees it happen, sees me search his face and come back empty. And Bennett Hawthorne, who once closed gates to keep me, nods slowly and lets me go. The divorce you filed, he says quietly. I've signed it. Your inheritance is restored. The southern estate is in your name, and this is the key to every gate on the property. He places it in my palm and closes my fingers over it. The mirror of a seal pressed there in secret, a lifetime of controlling men ending in one open hand. You owe me nothing. Whatever comes next is yours to choose. I move into my own house, free, wealthy, celebrated, and hollow in one specific room of myself. Then Bennett begins again. He brings breakfast on Tuesdays. He asks first. He tells me our history like an honest witness instead of a salesman, the terrible parts included, the 3 years of silence, the staircase, every failure owned out loud. He recounts our worst arguments so faithfully that I laugh until I can't breathe. He describes a chapel and a kiss and does not decorate it as destiny. When I need weeks of distance, he gives them without punishment. When I test him with my sharpest edges, he stays soft and stays honest and stays. No thread compels either of us. That's how I know what this is. Autumn arrives, and one Tuesday I hear his knock and my chest does something it hasn't done since the chamber. It aches. Not memory. Something new, built brick by brick out of choice, and quieter than the first love, and stronger, because nothing holds it up except the two of us deciding daily that it should stand. I open the door and kiss him before the breakfast survives the transaction. We marry in spring. A new covenant, written by both our hands, witnessed by Camden and a suspiciously tearful Hollis.
No hidden clauses. No inheritance traps.
No transfer of ownership anywhere in the text because I checked professionally twice. Just 2 names freely given and 1 line I insisted on. Either party may leave, and the door will be held open for him with love. Because that is the lesson both my lives paid for. Love is not proved by refusing to let someone go. It is proved by building a home so honest and so free that leaving is always possible, and staying is always chosen. Bennett held the door open when holding on might have destroyed him. That is why I walked back through it. At the reception, I slip away to look at our certificate one last time, the way a man checks a healed wound. And my blood turns to winter. A second signature is rising beneath mine. My handwriting, my petty little hook, burning up through the paper from somewhere beneath the world, dated in a year that existed before Sterling Creed was born. The chapel altar, the unfinished contract, the figure wearing my face. There was a third life, before the execution, before this. A first Marlowe who stood in candlelight while the clause was written, who signed a covenant older than the conspiracy. And as the ink settles, 1 line of script rises beside it, addressed to me. You freed them from him, now free him from me. I made Sterling Creed what he is, and my contract on his soul is still unpaid. My own handwriting, my own debt, a villain I built and forgot. Bennett's hand finds my shoulder, reading over it, and his voice is steady as ever. Then we start again. Together. Some doors, it turns out, open onto whole other lifetimes. If this story moved you, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your words might be exactly what inspires someone else today. The end.